Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math.
Hi, I'm Sean Gannon, and this is Minute Math. And today we're going to learn about two-step equations, and we're going to solve each equation. So if I was given this equation, 6 equals the letter A over 4 plus 2. Well, my first step to get A by itself is I want to subtract the 2. You see a plus 2, I want to subtract the 2 to both sides. What that does is cancel out the 2's here, and we're left with 6 minus 2, which is 4. So we have 4 equals A over 4. Well, 8 divided by 4 is just division now. So I have to multiply 4 to both sides to get A by itself. 4's cancel, we're left with A here, and 4 times 4 is 16. Now I can write this much neater, nicer, and write it as A equals 16, but that is my final answer. Negative 6 plus x over 4 equals a negative 5. Okay? Well, first thing first, I want to add that 6 to both sides. I see a negative 6 here, so opposite of negative is a positive, so I'm going to add a 6 to both sides. And when we do to one side, we have to do the other. Well, negative 5 plus 6 comes out to be 1. So also the 1 here, and we bring down the x over 4. Now, I have x divided by 4. Opposite of division, multiplication. So I need to multiply 4 to both sides. 4's here cancel, so now we're left with just the x. And then 1 times 4 is 4, and so now we're left with our final answer of x equals 4. Minus 7 equals a negative 7. Well, my two steps go as follows. I have a negative 7 here, a minus 7. Opposite of subtraction is addition, so I'm going to add that 7 to both sides. Adding a 7 to both sides cancels out these 7s, so I'm left with 9x equals, now 0, but 9x equals, what's negative 7 plus 7? Negative 7 plus 7 is just 0. Okay? So that's really what we had right here too, right? This is 0. But I have to write this 0 in, which this one I did not. So now I have 9 times x equals 0. Opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by 9 to both sides. And I have x equal, well, what's 0 divided by 9? Well, 0 divided by 9 is just 0. Okay? And so I have x equals 0 as my final answer. Equals 4 plus n over 5. Okay? Well, our first step here is that 4. I need to get rid of it. It's a positive 4. We're adding it. Opposite of that is subtracting. So I'm going to subtract a 4 to both sides. These 4's cancel. But now I'm left with 0 minus 4. 0 minus 4 is a negative 4. And I bring down now the n over 5. So I have negative 4 equals n over 5. That division of n over 5, the opposite of dividing is multiplying. So I'm going to multiply 5 to both sides. That cancels these 5's out here, leaves me with just the n, and now I have 5 times a negative 4. 5 times 4 is 20, and a positive times a negative is a negative, so 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. Well, I have negative 20 equals n. Let's make it nice and neat. N equals negative 20, and that is my final answer. Equals r over 20 minus 5. So negative 4 equals r over 20 minus 5. Well, I have a minus 5 here, so opposite of that subtraction is addition. So I'm going to add a 5 to both sides. What that allows me to do, the 5's cancel here, and I have negative 4 plus 5. Well, negative 4 plus 5 is 1. So it's a positive 1 equals r over 20. Well, I'm dividing by 20, so opposite of division now is multiplication. So I'm multiply by 20 to both sides. By doing so, it cancels out the 20's here on the right, and now I have 20 times 1. Well, 20 times 1 is easy, 20. So 20 equals r. So let's rewrite this to make it look nicer. And r comes first, so r equals 20. And that is my final answer. Negative 1 equals 5 plus x over 6. Okay? Well, the first step here I actually need to do, I can imagine there's like parentheses in that 5 plus x. I need to get rid of that denominator. And that's division. So opposite of division is multiplication. So I actually have to multiply both sides by 6 first. By doing so, it cancels out that 6 there, and I'm left with a 5 plus x in the numerator. Now 6 times negative 1 is a negative 6. Okay? Well, now I have a negative 6 equals 5 plus x. That positive 5, to get rid of that, I need to subtract a 5 to both sides. Now be careful, the 5's cancel here, which is great, and I'm left with x on the right. But then I have a negative 6 minus 5. Negative 6 minus 5 is a negative 11. Okay? It's more negative. Negative 6 minus 5 more units brings you down the number line to the left there to be more negative. So we have a negative 11. So negative 11 equals x. Let's make it look nice. X equals a negative 11, and that is my final answer. V plus 9 over 3 equals 8. So V plus 9 over 3 equals 8. Well, I have that division here. That divided by 3 I need to deal with first, because the V plus 9 is on the numerator and the denominator is just a 3. I need to get rid of that. That's division. So opposite division is multiplication. Multiply a 3 to both sides. That cancels these 3's out, leaving me with V plus 9 on the left and 8 times 3 being 24 on the right. Now I have V plus 9 equals 24. Opposite of that addition is subtraction. Subtract a 9 to both sides. Leaving me, the 9's cancel, V on the left, on the right, 24 minus 9, which is 15. And V equals 15 is my final answer. 2 times n plus 5 equals a negative 2. Well, my first step for here is I see that 2's on the outside, and that's multiplication. So I want to get rid of that outside the parenthesis. So I'm going to kind of divide by a 2 first, right? Divide by 2 to both sides. And what that does is allows me to get rid of that multiplication that's happening. So it's almost like thinking reverse order in a sense when you're solving it like this. So the 2's cancel, leaving me with n plus 5 on the inside, and negative 2 divided by 2 is just a negative 1. And so now I have n plus 5 equals negative 1. Well, opposite of addition is subtraction, so I subtract a 5 to both sides. And now I'm left with n equals, well, the 5's canceled, right, so I didn't have to write that anymore. And negative 1 minus 5 is more negative, which is a negative 6. And so n equals a negative 6 is my final answer. Negative 9x plus 1 equals a negative 80. Well, my first step here is that plus 1, I need to get rid of that. Opposite of addition is subtraction, so I'm subtracting 1 to both sides. The 1's cancel, leaving me with 9x on the left equals negative 80 minus 1, be careful, is negative 81. Okay, it's not negative 79, it's negative 81. Be careful with that. So now I have negative 9 times x equals negative 81. Well, multiplication here. Opposite of multiplication is, you can guess it, division. So I'm going to divide by negative 9 to both sides. The negative 9's cancel on the left, giving me the x. And now here we got to think about it. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So we have a positive final answer. 81 divided by 9 is 9, right? Because 9 times 9 is 81. And so a negative 81 divided by a negative 9 is a positive 9. And so x equals 9 is my final answer. Negative 6 equals n over 2 minus 10. Okay. Well, that subtraction here, I need to bring that over to the right. So to do that, opposite of subtraction is addition. So that's my first step. I have to add a 10 to both sides. Now, negative 6 plus a positive 10 is in fact a positive 4. So if positive 4 equals, the 10's here cancel on the left, and I'm left with 4 equals n over 2. Well, I have n divided by 2. Opposite of division is multiplication, so I'm going to multiply it by 2 to both sides. The 2's here cancel, leaving me with 2 times 4, which is 8, and n just on the right. Well, I can write this more neatly, n first, so n equals a positive 8, and that is, in fact, my final answer. Negative 2 equals 2 plus the letter v over 4. first step here is to bring this 2 to the left. It's a positive 2, we're adding it. Opposite of that is subtraction. So I'm going to subtract a 2 to both sides. These 2's cancel, and negative 2 minus 2 is a negative 4. And then we have a v over a positive 4, right? Negative 2, we subtract it, move it more to the left on the number line, making it a negative 4. So then negative 4 equals v over 4. Well, opposite of division, that's what's going on here, that divided by 4 is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by 4 to both sides. The 4's on the right, cancel. Now be careful, there's a lot of 4's here. Don't get confused, take your time. We have a v there, left, and we have 4 times negative 4 is a negative 16. And I'm going to rewrite this to have v come first, so v equals a negative 16, and that is, in fact, my final answer. 144 equals negative 12 times x plus 5. Okay? Well, I have that multiplication on the outside, right? That negative 12 times the x plus 5, and I want to get x by itself. So opposite of that multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by negative 12 first. The negative 12's cancel here. And I have 144 divided by negative 12. Now, off the top of your head, you might know that it's going to be a negative 12. But we'll do our long division here if you need the help. So if 12 goes into 144, well, 12 goes into 14 one time. Bring me in 12. I subtract them. 14 minus 12 is 2. Bring down the 4. 12 goes into 24 2 times. Right? 2 times 12 is 24. And there we go. We're subtracting at 0. Done. Now we have a positive divided by a negative is going to be negative. So we have a negative 12 here. Bring them down, just the x plus 5, which is left. And I got rid of the parentheses there. So now I have negative 12 equals x plus 5. Well, opposite of addition, subtraction. So I'm going to subtract a 5 to both sides. Leaving me with negative 12 minus 5 is a negative 17. Equals, well, what's left is x. Now, let's write this a little nicer here. That x first, and so we have x equals a negative 17. That's my final answer. Negative 15 equals negative 4m plus 5. Okay? Well, my first step would be get this 5 over to the left. So I see there's adding a 5, so opposite of that is subtracting a 5. So I'm going to subtract a 5 to both sides. And I have negative 15 minus 5. That makes it more negative and actually becomes a negative 20 equals negative 4m. I'm bringing that down. And 5 plus negative 5, that is cancels, right? There's 0. And we don't need to write the add 0 here. So now we have negative 20 equals negative 4m. Well, there's multiplication between the negative 4 and the m. Opposite multiplication, division. So I'm going to divide by negative 4 to both sides. And on the right, the negative 4's cancel, leaving me in the m. And then on the left, I have negative 20 divided by negative 4. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So 20 divided by 4 is 5. And so negative 20 divided by negative 4 is positive 5. Now let's rearrange it. Put m first, make it look nicer. And so we have a final answer of m equals 5. 10 minus 6v equals negative 104. Okay? My first step would be to subtract a 10 to both sides. There's like a plus 10 there, right? But I'm subtracting, I'm going to get rid of that 10. Be careful, a lot of people see that negative and think, oh, I mean, that had a 10. No, think about what can cancel this 10. That's subtracting a 10 to both sides. We're left with a negative 6v. These 10's cancel. Equals, well, negative 104 minus 10 is like adding a negative 10. It's a negative 114. So then my next step here is I see a negative 6 times v. I need to divide that negative 6 to both sides. Well, the negative 6 is canceled. We're left with the v on the left. But on the right, we have a negative 114 divided by negative 6. A negative divided by negative is a positive, so I know that. But how many times does 6 go into 114? Well, let's go 6 goes into 114 here. 6 goes into 11 one time. 1 times 6 is 6. We subtract it and get a 5. We bring down the 4. 6 goes into 54 9 times, right? Because 9 times 6 is 54. Subtract them, 0, we're done. 19 is what 144 divided by 6 is. And again, remember, a negative divided by negative is a positive. So negative 114 divided by negative 6 is positive 19. And so our final answer here is V equals 19. 8n plus 7 equals 31. So 8n plus 7 equals 31. Well, my first step here is I need to subtract a 7 to both sides. So if I subtract this 7 here, that's the opposite of that addition that's going on, adding 7 and subtracting 7 to both sides. These 7's will cancel, bringing me the 8n down here. And what's 31 minus 7? It's 24. So 31 minus 7 is 24. Okay. Now, if you have trouble seeing that, you can always do the traditional method. Make that a 2, 1, 11 minus 7 is 4, bring down the 2. Anyway, 8n equals 24. I now see there's multiplication there with the 8 and the n. Up to that's division. I'm going to divide by 8. And I'm left with, well, whatever 24 divided by 8 is. Well, 24 divided by 8 is 3. And so n equals 3 is my final answer. Negative 9x minus 13 equals negative 103. So negative 9x minus 13 equals negative 103. Well, first step here is I want to add a 13 to both sides. I'm going to add a 13 because it's opposite of that subtraction, plus 13. But what does that come out to be? Well, negative 103 plus 13 comes out to be negative 90. Okay, negative 90. Okay. Now, if you need to see that, you can always draw a little number line here, say, okay, we're at negative 113, and really count 13 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, we're adding 13 units. 1, 2, 3 gives me to negative 110. Okay, 10 more. 103, not 113. So 3 gets me to 100. I'm sorry about that. So we have negative 103, and we have negative 100 here. So 3 values. Then we do 10 more gets me to negative 90. Okay, it's up to you how to do that, but hopefully you're getting better. You can add those in your head. But negative 103 plus 13 is negative 90. It's still negative, but it's closer to 0. 13's cancel, bring down the negative 9x. So now I have negative 9x equals negative 90. Okay, we divide by negative 9 to both sides because that's the opposite of the multiplication. Negative 9's cancel. We're left with x equals, well, negative 9 divided by 9 is a positive 10. A negative divided by negative is a positive, and 9 goes into 90 10 times. So x equals 10 is my final answer. N plus 5 over negative 16 equals negative 1. Well, I have n plus 5 over negative 16 equals negative 1. Well, my first step here, I see that division down there. I'm going to actually multiply by a negative 16 to both sides, opposite that division. That cancels out these negative 16s and gets rid of that denominator. So I'm left with n, not m, but n plus 5 left here. And negative 1 times a negative 16 is a positive 16, right? Because a negative times a negative is a positive, and 1 doesn't really change much. But the negative causes the negative 16 to cancel out. So we have n plus 5 equals 16. Well, now I have that plus 5. It's pretty simple. I subtracted 5 to both sides. And I'm left with, on the left here, the n's canceling. Or sorry, the 5's canceling. Oh my goodness. 16 minus 5 is just 11. And so now we have n equals 11 as a final answer. Negative 10 equals a negative 10 plus 7n. Well, my first step here is I want to add a 10 to both sides. I see that minus 10 there, and the only way I can bring it over to get rid of it on the right side, bring it over to the left, is adding a 10 to both sides. These 10s end up canceling. I bring down just the 7n, what's left, and negative 10 plus a positive 10, they cancel each other out too, and we're left with 0. Okay? Now be careful, a lot of times students think that 0 can't be written. 0 can be written. 0 is a number, okay? It can be used just like any other number. So now I have 0 equals 7m. Well, I need to divide by 7 because that's opposite of what's going on here. There's multiplication between 7 and the m. I'm going to divide by 7 on both sides. But now be careful, a lot of common mistakes here. 0 divided by 7 is just 0, right? Equals m. And so now I can rewrite this so it's nicer to be m equals 0. And that is my final answer. M equals 10 times k minus 9. Okay. Well, my first step here is I see there's that multiplication outside the parenthesis. So I'm actually going to divide by 10 first. That's opposite of that multiplication is division. This allows me to cancel these 10s out, leaving a 1 there. And 1 times anything's anything, right? So I'm just going to leave that out, and I'm left with a k minus 9, and I don't need the parentheses anymore. Well, negative 10 divided by positive 10 is just a negative 1, okay? Negative divided by positive is a negative, and 10 divided by 10 is 1. So negative 10 divided by 10 is a negative 1. So now I have negative 1 equals k minus 9. I then have to add a 9 to both sides. Okay? This is opposite of that subtraction, leaving me a k on the right. On the left, negative 1 plus 9 is actually just 8, positive 8. Okay? Negative 1 plus 9 is 8. It's similar to 9 minus 1, which is 8. You can think of it like that if you need to. Well, 8 equals k. So we rearrange this to make it look nicer. K equals a positive 8. And there we go. We have our final answer. M over 9 minus 1 equals negative 2. So if m over 9 minus 1 equals negative 2, well, what I need to do here first is add that subtracting 1, right? Minus 1. Opposite of that is adding, so I'm going to add a 1 to both sides. By doing so, I can bring down the m over 9. These 1s will cancel, and I'm left with negative 2 plus 1, which is a negative 1. Okay, so m over 9 equals negative 1. Now I have, well, divided by 9, right? M over 9 is divided by 9. Opposite division is multiplication. So multiply 9 to both sides, and that leaves me with m equals negative 1 times 9, which is a negative 9. That's it. That's my final answer here. M equals a negative 9. 9 plus 9n equals 9. All these 9s, 9, 9, 9, okay? Well, my first step here is I see there's a positive 9. I'm going to subtract a 9. That's how I can get rid of that positive 9 right there. Subtract the 9 to both sides. That cancels out, leaving me with just a 9 added here. And 9 minus 9 is 0. Now, once you're comfortable with 0, I love seeing zeros. It means the problem is getting very simple, but you have to be comfortable with it, okay? 9 times n equals 0. There's multiplication there. Opposite multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by 9 to both sides. And I have n equals 0 divided by 9, which is just 0. So I have n equals 0 now. That's just my final answer. 7 times 9 plus k equals 84. Well, I see there's multiplication going on here outside the parentheses. So first step, I'm just going to divide a 7 to both sides, opposite of that multiplication. So I'm left with 9 plus k here. But what's 84 divided by 7? Well, if you really think about it, it's 12. But if you can't, no worries. We use the long division here. 7 goes in 84, 7 goes in 8 one time. 1 times 7 is 7. Subtract the 2, I get 1. Bring down the 4, maybe now you can see it. 7 goes in 14 2 times. 2 times 7 is 14. And there we go. 7 goes in 84 12 times. So I'm going to put 12 right there. Okay. And so 84 divided by 7 being 12, I have 9 plus k equals 12. So now my next step here is getting rid of that 9. I'm going to subtract a 9 to both sides, leave me with k here. The 9's cancel. K equals 12 minus 9, which is 3. And so k equals 3. That's my final answer. 8 plus b over negative 4 equals 5. Okay? So 8 plus b over negative 4 equals 5. Well, my first step is actually to subtract an 8 to both sides. I'm going to bring that 8 over to the right. All right? 8 minus 8 is 0. Fantastic. It cancels out. And I'm left with b over negative 4. And 5 minus 8 is a negative 3. 5 minus 8 is a negative 3. So now I have b over negative 4 equals a negative 3. Okay? Well, how do I get rid of that negative 4? Well, it's division. So opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 4. These negative 4s cancel, so I'm left with b here on the left. And negative 3 times a negative 4 is actually a positive 12. Remember, a negative times a negative is going to be a positive. So our final answer here is b equals 12. Negative 2, 4, 3 equals negative 9 times 10 plus x. So negative 2, 4, 3 equals negative 9 times 10 plus x. Well, that negative 9 times what's in the parentheses, I want to get rid of that first. There's multiplication there. So I'm actually divided by negative 9 first. Well, the negative 9s will cancel here, leaving me just the 10 plus x left on the right, and I don't need the parentheses anymore. I can take those off. And I know that a negative divided by negative is a positive. Fantastic. Well, now I have 2, 4, 3 divided by 9. Let's do some long division, okay, because I don't know that off the top of my head. So 9 goes into 2, 4, 3. Well, 9 goes into 24 2 times with 18, right? 2 times 9 is 18. Let's subtract them. I have a 6 here, okay? Well, how many times, right, I'm going to bring down the 3. 9 goes into 63. How many times? That's 7, right? 7 times 9 is 63. We subtract them. 63 minus 63 is 0. So now I have a 27 up here. So 9 goes into 243 27 times. And remember, it's a positive 27 because a negative divided by negative is a positive. So I have 27 equals 10 plus x. Well, now I need to subtract a 10 to both sides. That's my next step, subtracting a 10. Because we've added 10 here, we subtract the 10, leaving me just an x on the right. 27 minus 10 is pretty simple now. It's 17. So let's rearrange this, put x first. So x equals a positive 17. And that, in fact, is my final answer.
Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math. Minute Math. Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math. MinuteMathTutor.com.